All right, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar titled The Story of Two Remodelers. My name is Kyle Hunt and my business name is Remodel Your Marketing. Most all of you are on my email list, so I'll keep the introduction fairly brief. I'm here in Michigan and I work with remodelers across the country on implementing a proven and practical marketing and sales system for their business. There's the nice and brief intro, and I'll just leave it at that for now. So most of the webinar today is going to be a story. And let me introduce you to the characters in the story. It's a story about Cathy and Chris. They're a husband and wife who live in a good-sized town. They just moved this past year because of a job change and are starting to get to know some of the local people and businesses, but really don't have a lot of relationships established yet. All right, so they bought a home that they knew they were going to need to remodel, and the time has come for them to start remodeling their home, and in particular, a kitchen remodeling project. They've done a little bit of research online. Chris has spoken to a couple colleagues at work about the project, and Cathy has been talking to a few of her new friends about what they're looking to have done. All right, so that is Cathy and Chris. We're going to be hearing their name fairly often. They're looking to do a kitchen remodel. It kind of looks like the kitchen on your screen right there. All right. Now, there are two remodelers who are also part of this story, and I say story because this is a fictitious tale, but I think as we move through it, you'll see that this is a story that is played out in our remodeling industry every day. And I'll be curious as we go through to see which of the two remodeling companies remind you the most of your business. So the first company in our story is Cornerstone Construction. We'll refer to them as Cornerstone throughout the story. Cornerstone has been in business for 15 years. They have an owner named Tom. That's who you're looking at on the screen. Tom does most of the sales work for the company. He has a production manager, carpenter out in the field. In the office, he has an office manager and a bookkeeper. Most of the production work is done through a trusted group of trade partners or subcontractors that they've had a great relationship with for years. They usually do a little over $1 million or so in revenue a year, with projects ranging from kitchens, baths, additions, and whole house remodeling. So that, my friends, is Tom and Cornerstone Construction. The second company in our story is Refined Remodeling. They've been in business for 7 years. They have an owner named Bill. That's who you're looking at there, and he's looking quite refined, isn't he? Bill's business, Refined Remodeling, is actually strikingly similar to Tom's. They haven't been in business for quite as long, but he's built it to around $1 million in revenue each year, and also has help in the office and a production manager that on his team. Like Tom, most of his projects are made up of a combination of kitchens, baths, additions, but Bill also does a little bit of exterior work. So that is Bill and Refined Remodeling. So if you're following along, we have the homeowners, Cathy and Chris, and we have two remodelers, Tom with Cornerstone and Bill with Refined. Now what we're going to do with our story is walk you through the sales process that Cathy and Chris experienced with both Tom and Bill. What you're going to see is that both remodelers are respectable, do quality work, but what we're going to see in the story are little differences between the companies, specifically around their marketing system and sales process. That while they might kind of seem small, the differences, it really is what makes the difference in who Cathy and Chris end up choosing for their projects. So as we walk through the story, we're going to go through these 4 areas of the sales and marketing process. The first one, the initial phone call and what happens before either remodeler arrive at Cathy and Chris's door. The in-person meeting, the follow-up, and number 4, what happens right after the project is signed and after the project is completed. All right. So as we go through each, I'm going to pause at certain times to kind of really highlight the key differences between those two approaches that we're going to see. All right. So let's start with number 1, the initial phone call, and what happens before either remodeler arrive at Cathy and Chris's door. So Cathy is the one who initiates a phone call to Tom with Cornerstone and Bill with Refined. In both cases, their office manager answered the phone. Tom's office manager took down Cathy's name, phone number, and the type of project she was interested in, and let Cathy know that Tom would be calling her tomorrow. All right, pretty fair, no big deal there. He was out of the office for the rest of the day, so he'd call back the next day. All right, the conversation lasted about 2 minutes, and then it was over. All right. Now, Bill's office manager uncovered the reason for Cathy's call and said, great, do you have 5 to 7 minutes to answer some questions about yourself and the project you had in mind? Of course, Cathy said yes, and Bill's office manager started asking the questions on her project discovery sheet. Questions like, how did you hear about us? Have you visited our website yet? When are you looking to have this project completed by? Etc. She told Cathy, Bill will be calling you back later today, and that conversation will probably last 15 to 20 minutes since he will really want to get to know you and your project. Does that sound good? Cathy said, you bet, right? Of course she did. And the call ended. So Bill called Cathy back the same day, and they did speak for that 15 to 20 minutes, just like planned. Bill asked lots of questions, like, have you ever remodeled before? If so, tell me about the experience. He got to know them and their project. They chatted about the fact that they're new to the area and found some common links and common interests between them. Eventually he asked, what type of financial investment are you looking to make in this project? All right, gasp! He actually asked about her budget. Right? And you know what happens? They actually had a pretty frank and open discussion about it. He also explained how Refined Remodeling's process works, laid out their design fee step, etc. All right? So 70% of the conversation was Cathy talking, and Bill was able to understand her and Chris's needs, fears, desires, and expectations quite well. All right? Poll question. See if this here technology will work for us. Let me toss this poll question out here. All right, so the poll question is, and you should be seeing it on your screen, when do you ask the prospect how much they are looking to invest in their project, i.e. their budget? Okay, your options are on the initial phone call, at the initial in-person meeting, sometimes I remember to ask, sometimes I don't, or I never ask. Those are your options. So we'll let it go just for another minute or two. I should say second or two. All right, and most of you have voted, and 3, 2, 1. Close poll, and we'll share the results here. All right, so the results were 14% on the initial phone call, 70% at the initial in-person meeting, and 0 for sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't, and 14% I never ask. All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you for participating. Technology worked nice. All right, now we get back to our story here. Oops, there we go. Come on, come on. I just talked about the technology and then I messed it up. All right, so back to the story. So Bill booked a time to meet with Cathy and Chris, and then he said, Cathy, you'll be receiving an email from us containing a document titled What to Expect at Our First Meeting. I'd like you and Chris to please read that before we meet, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to spend the first 10 minutes of our appointment reviewing that. Does that sound good? All right, it's kind of leading the conversation, right? Cathy, of course, said yes, and Bill continued, excellent. In the email, I'm also going to include a link to House, which I told you about. You're going to absolutely love that site, by the way, if you haven't been there before. And I'll also include a few other resources that I think would be helpful to both of you. What is your email address so I can get that sent out to you? Cathy, of course, provided her email address, and Bill sent out the email that looks like this with a click of a button. The email looked like this that's on your screen. Right? And with that same click of a button, he also sent out a great looking postcard that starts to show Cathy and Chris what doing business with Refined Remodeling is going to be like. All right, so this is a regular postcard that gets printed out. It says on the front, once upon a time, Kyle and Sarah decided to remodel. Puts the person's first name, obviously that's me, and my wife's name is Sarah. All right, so I want to stop there and make a quick note. I mentioned on the registration page for the webinar that at the end of the webinar, I'd mentioned a program I've developed called Remodelers Autopilot. Sending the initial email that I just showed you and that postcard that you're seeing on your screen, that is what can, with just one click, get sent out of Remodelers Autopilot. A lot of what I'm showing you on this webinar can be done very quickly and systematically with the program that a couple dozen of my remodeling clients are already using. All right, so back to the story. That night, Cathy mentioned to Chris how much she enjoyed the conversation with Bill. After all, she got to talk about her, the family, and her project most of the time. People love talking about themselves, right? And they reviewed the professional email from Bill and spent that time that night creating an idea book on hows. All right. Now, Tom with Cornerstone called Cathy back the next day, still fairly timely in when he said he would. The conversation was cordial, but only lasted about 4 minutes. Tom realized that the project was definitely one that Cornerstone would be interested in, and they set up a time for an appointment. He didn't get her email address because he didn't ask, first of all, and they'd be heading out to the appointment with or without it. And frankly, he's going out to the appointment without a lot of knowledge about Cathy and Chris's project. Right? He just kind of got the basics and booked the appointment, and off he went. So who has the upper hand so far? Right? Bill from Refined or Tom from Cornerstone? Now, the answer, I'm not going to do a poll question. I think the answer so far is pretty obvious, right? Now, here's the key as we wrap up this first step. The differences between the two are pretty substantial, but they're not earth-shattering. Bill and Refined, they have a clear process and system for the initial phone call and the questions that they ask. They don't make it sound scripted, but they do sound organized, and they know a whole lot more about Cathy and Chris's needs, fears, desires, and expectations than Tom does. Tom didn't technically do anything wrong, but Bill, with the questions, the time he spent getting to know Cathy and their project, the professional email with resources, the postcard in the mail, he's just built a lot more know, like, and trust with Cathy and Chris at this point. And that's kind of how I define marketing and, frankly, sales too. It's all about building know, like, and trust with folks. So the key here is Bill has a system and Tom is shooting from the hip. Okay. So we've covered number one. Let's move into number two, which is the in-person meeting. So out of the 4 areas that we're going to cover, this is the one that we're probably going to spend the least time on, but I wanted to include it because there are a few key things I wanted to emphasize. All right, and I already hit on it a little bit, but I want to hammer it home. First, Bill with Refined is showing up to his in-person meeting already having spent 4 times as much time getting to know Cathy and Chris. He's asked them about how much they're looking to invest in their project and has that budget number. Right? He set up the expectation of how that first appointment is going to start. If you remember, they're going to spend the first 10 minutes or so reviewing the what to expect at the first meeting document. And Cathy and Chris have prepared for that. Cathy and Chris have received the professional organized email from Bill with resources and links. They've prepared an idea book on hows, and Bill already has reviewed that. Already knows kind of the style and the look they're going for. They're aware of his design fee and how his process works, so there's going to be no big surprises there. Do you see how the initial phone call and what happens before either one of these folks walk up to the door has really set the stage? He has a process, a proven process that he follows. He's organized. He's enhanced that process with valuable resources. Again, nothing earth-shattering, very proven, practical stuff, and has begun educating Cathy and Chris on what they need to know. Bill's in control of the sales process and is elegantly leading the homeowners through the remodeling process. Right, and that word elegantly, he's not, there's no hard selling going on here, but he's also not being passive and just letting the homeowner control the sales process as we see so often in our industry. He is elegantly, and I think that's a great word for it, and a word that should describe how you're approaching your sales process. He's leading the conversation. He's leading the process. On the flip side, Tom with Cornerstone has none of these things. He has a basic understanding of the project, no idea what their budget is, no communication via email or in the mail. They don't know what his process is. He looks, talks, and acts the same as a bunch of other remodelers, while Bill with Refined stands out. Right? So as you're looking at this, and as I've gotten to know dozens of remodelers and work with dozens of remodelers across the country, implementing these little things into your remodeling business, the little things that we're talking about here, can make a huge difference in turning more of the leads you already have into paying projects. Okay, so my question for you is, are you more like Bill or like Tom? Right, think about that for a second. I'm going to grab a little sip of water here. Are you more like Bill or Tom? Maybe you're a hybrid of the two. I'm not entirely sure, right? All right, so that's the main message I wanted to share on the in-person meeting section of things. You know, there's another probably whole webinar and coaching work that we can be done, you know, to dig into the process of the in-person meeting. But the focus I want us to have today are on the little things that surround the sales process that can make a drastic difference in moving leads to paying projects. So with that said, there is one thing that happened the morning after Bill and Tom completed their in-person appointment. Bill wrote out a handwritten thank you card that went like this. Cathy and Chris, thank you for your interest in our remodeling services. It was great meeting you, and I look forward to our next conversation. It would be an honor to work with you on your project. Please let us know if you have any questions, and we look forward to seeing you on February 24th at 3 o'clock. Many thanks, Bill. Right? This is a handwritten, signed, and mailed thank you card that he sends out to Cathy and Chris. And you can see Bill already set a follow-up appointment at the first meeting. All right, these two little items, sending a thank you card in the mail and making sure you set the follow-up appointment while you're still at the first meeting. Those are proven practical approaches that will help you. If you're not doing either of them, please start. When I present in person and I bring up something as common or as people have heard over the years of sending out a thank you card, I say, you know, who here does that? And you get a few hands, and I say, who here does that consistently? And some of the hands go down. But the great majority of the room in general are not doing it. And it's just one of those little things, right, that you can be doing to differentiate your remodeling business. Is because they received, is because, I don't think that's proper English, but because they receive a thank you card from you, a handwritten thank you card after that initial meeting, is that the reason that they're going to go with you? Probably not, right? But is it going to play a factor? Is it going to start to set an expectation of who you are, how you do business, your personal touch, your attention to detail? Absolutely, right? So Tom, as you might have guessed by now, didn't send them anything after the appointment, and also doesn't have a date yet for the follow-up meeting. And if I know Tom, and I've seen Toms out there, chances are he's going to get busy with this and putting out this fire, and all of a sudden it's going to be like, man, I need to be getting them back in. I need to be talking to them. I need to finalize their proposal. Oh, it's been a week and a half. I got to get that done. Bill, on the other hand, he's already put a date out there. He knows when he has to get it done. And like many business owners, myself included, when you have a deadline, things get done. You know, so that's doing a service for you. It's also doing a service for the client to get it done quickly and on time. All right, so again, running a successful remodeling business is about doing a lot of little things right. There isn't a magic bullet. It's a combination of a lot of little things, proven, practical, simple, effective little things. And when you combine them, it makes a huge difference. All right, so number 3, the follow-up. In number 4, looking ahead, I'm going to finally tell you who Cathy and Chris award their kitchen remodeling project to. I know that you just have no clue who's going to get it, and the suspense is probably killing you, right? But here in number 3, if you can just hold on to your horses for a little bit, the follow-up. I wanted to broaden the story a little bit from just talking about Cathy and Chris's project and talk about the following, which is Bill and Tom's full sales pipeline. All right. So the sales pipeline includes people at the appointment stage, or where we're working on the proposal or design, people that we have done a proposal for but haven't signed with us yet, jobs in progress, right? Jobs that we have sold that are in some stage of production, and then completed jobs that we've already completed during the course of the year. What you're seeing on the screen is a screenshot from Bill's Remodelers autopilot account. Okay, with a click of a button, he can go from one group to the next and see clearly who is in each of these areas of his sales process. And he can quickly see who he needs to follow up with. He has this very important part of his sales process nice and organized. Right? Now, besides having his sales pipeline organized well and at his fingertips, he's also able to run a report, whether it's quarterly or twice a year or once a year, to clearly see how many and where all of his leads have come from. That important how they found us question, right? He can quickly figure out what his closing percentage overall for the year is, or his closing percentage by specific lead type, like referral or website. Okay, and let's say I'm going to do a quick poll here. Let me pull that bad boy up. Here's the next poll question. Launch poll. Can you quickly and easily tell me everyone who is in your done proposal for haven't signed list? Either yes, you can quickly and easily tell me who those people are. No, I can't. Or no, but now that you say it, Kyle, it would be valuable if I could. Okay, I'll give that a little time for you guys to answer that one. Come on, people. We had like 80% of the first one. We're only at 44% here, with mostly yeses, which is impressive. All right. So I think I must have mostly overachievers because it's the great majority is yes. Good enough. All right. All right, so moving on to the next slide here. So once again, Bill is organized and doesn't let things slip through the cracks, right? He's got his pipeline organized and clear, and Tom, on the other hand, does not. Another example of what Bill can do with 2 clicks in Remodeler's Autopilot is he can send a professional follow-up email, or in the case of what I have on the screen, follow-up postcards to prospects. He literally goes to the name of the person, clicks on send postcard, selects which postcard he wants to send, and it's initiated to send automatically through a printing partner through the software. So what you're seeing on the screen is one that has on the front first name. If you have any other questions, just give me a ring, and has a nice net message on the back. The other one says, puts their first name in there, and it says, how you been? All right, it's got some coffee beans in the background, and I know you're all chuckling. I can't hear you because the phones are muted, but you're probably just laughing your heads off. And the back of it starts with, yes, the headline of this card is a bit silly, but, you know, first name, it's been a while since we've heard from you, and we truly want to know how you've been. Covered a lot of project ideas, et cetera, you know, just checking in to see where you're at with the project. So there are some things and little things and tools at Bill's disposal. A clear and quick sales pipeline so that he can follow up easier, reports that show where his leads are coming from, the source of those leads, how people found him. He can calculate his closing percentage, and postcards and emails that he can quickly send out when he's following up. And don't discount being able to see that data, being able to see where leads are coming from. So often, I'd say 8 out of 10 times when I ask that question of, you know, where are your leads coming from? Well, mostly previous clients. We're getting a few through this or this. You can't just guess. That is such an important number that you need to know that. You can make decisions based on that. You can move marketing dollars based on that. Unless you have millions of dollars to spend on your marketing and your advertising, you need to hold every dollar that you spend to market your remodeling business accountable. You need to be able to know if it is producing or not. And yes, there probably are some things in your marketing where you might, you know, sponsor the local little league team, and you might not be able to quite, you know, process that. But a lot of the dollars you spend, you should be able to hold accountable. The first part of that is you need a system in order to track it. And even going back further, instead of pulling out a blank sheet of paper when a lead comes in, you got to pull out something like a project discovery sheet. So you have a system so that you have the questions that you or your team always ask, always be asking how they found us. Okay. Get off my soapbox there a little bit. So Tom with Cornerstone, he simply has a stack of folders on his desk. Right? Those are people he's working on a proposal for that he needs to follow up with. The bottom of the stack is getting pretty stale. You know, these are people he needs to follow up with, but the stuff on top is what gets his attention, and weeks go by without making a follow-up call or contact with some of his older leads that are still ripe to close. In my opinion, we give up too soon with our follow-up. We make 2 calls and then we give up. We can send emails. We can send them resources to help with their decision. We can send them, you know, a trash can. Some of you might be familiar with that. That's an example of lumpy mail. You can ask me more about that later if you want. We can send them a card in the mail. We can text them. You know, the bottom line is we work so hard to get the lead, to put the design, the proposal together. Don't give up so quick. Right? A lot of remodelers have the tendency to forget about quote-unquote older leads to focus their time on new leads that are coming in. Make sure you aren't neglecting those leads that you could close if you had stronger and consistent follow-up. It's worth it. Right? And one of the keys is being able to quickly access all the people in your done proposal for haven't signed list. All right, so Remodelers Autopilot is a great tool to help you do that. But even if you don't use a program like this, even having just a simple Excel spreadsheet, something that can help you track it. All right, so I say if it's under 1:30, we're doing good on time, and it's only 1:27, I think, so we're doing good on time. All right, actually, we'll probably let you guys loose a little bit before the top of the hour. So, number 4 in the areas of the sales and marketing process that we are covering today is what happens right after the project is signed and after the project is completed. Okay, so this is where our story turns from two remodelers down to one remodeler. After the initial phone call, the in-person meetings, the design proposal stage, and the follow-up, drum roll please, Cathy and Chris have selected Bill and Refined Remodeling for their kitchen remodeling project. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? Now, let's break it down a little bit. Why did they choose him and his company? Well, lucky for you, I actually asked Cathy and Chris, and they didn't actually have one reason in particular. What they told me was that they felt like there was just a lot of little things he did that earned their trust, respect, in their business. They felt like he understood their needs better than the other company they spoke with. They understood his process and were comfortable with it. He introduced them to House and some other great resources that they found really helpful and valuable to them. And little things like getting the thank you card from him after the initial in-person meeting just made them feel like he cared. Chris said if he takes that good a care in sending a professional email with all those resources, took the time to write out and send us a thank you card, asks a lot of good questions, listens well, I'm confident that that attention to detail and schedule will carry through into the production part of the project. Right? So a combination of a lot of little things that Bill did. So Bill has them now, right? But he's still going to do a few things to enhance the experience that Cathy and Chris have with him and his company. And let me pause there for a second. This is something I'm always talking to my remodeling clients about, and it's something I write fairly frequently about. You've probably seen some emails from me that have touched on this. Bill's job now is to give Cathy and Chris a remarkable remodeling experience. Right? Not just kind of an okay experience, but something that they're going to rave about and be thrilled with. You know, they'll put no doubt in their mind who are they going to use for their next project, and there'll be no doubt that they will happily and eagerly refer their friends, family, and colleagues to Bill and Refined Remodeling in the future. Right? So, I mean, let me just kind of pause there. That is what we need to focus on. If it's not your number one priority as a business owner, as a salesperson, man, it's 1B or right up near the top. It is so much easier to build a business, to have a consistent business, to have consistent leads coming into your company if you're giving your clients a remarkable experience, something that they're going to talk about. We work so hard to get the project. We need to work just as hard to give them a great experience. It's going to pay itself off time and time and time and time again, right? So I'm emphasizing that because every single one of us, myself included, there's things that we can be doing during the process of delivery of production to enhance the project, to make it even better. So I challenge you to continue to think about that and ways that you can improve that. All right. So there's some marketing pieces that Bill's going to send out of his Remodelers Autopilot that helps him kind of enhance the experience they're going to have. All right. Again, all these are just little things, but they make a difference. So after the project is signed, what happens right after the project is signed in Bill's Remodelers Autopilot account? He adds them to a new client sequence. All right, by click of a button, he adds them to this little sequence, and when they're added to that, they automatically receive a new client kit email. Okay, so it's an email that contains a PDF document that basically says, welcome and congratulations on your decision to remodel your home with us. Our new client kit is part of our effort to make working with us as easy as possible. Gets into frequently asked questions, things they can do to prepare for their project, etc., etc. All right, and they also get a little postcard that talks about them joining their family of clients and just has a nice note and a nice expectation of how that's going to go. All right. Now, what happens after the project is completed? So often, I'll go up to a remodeler and I'll say, hey, I did a nice kitchen remodel project with you, a nice $50,000 kitchen remodel project with you 2 years ago. Have I heard from you since then? And a lot of times the answer I get is, well, maybe. If you called me, then yeah, probably. Or, well, yeah, we might have crossed paths here or there, but the answer is no a lot of times. Now, the reality is that the majority of your new revenue this year is going to come from previous clients coming back for more work or referrals from those previous clients, right? So the majority of your new revenue this year is coming from your old contacts and clients. We need to be staying in touch with them. We need a plan to continue to stay in touch with them. Now, in Bill's case, since he's using Remodeler's autopilot, at the end of the project, he simply adds them to the completed job sequence with one click. All right, and when he does that, Cathy and Chris will automatically receive over the next 36 months or so some emails and postcards. As an example, on day 1 they'll get the satisfaction survey. On day 30 they'll get an email that says, hey, can you leave a review for us on Google and Houzz? On day 180, so 6 months after the project, there'll be an email that just says basically, hey, it's been 6 months since the project's been completed. We just wanted to check in and see if you had any care or maintenance questions. At the 1-year mark, they'll receive a postcard in the mail that says, happy 1-year birthday to your remodeling project. Right? Can you believe it's been a year already? We want to take a minute to thank you again. It was wonderful working with you, etc., etc. So as an example, here's the end of project survey that one of my clients up here in Michigan has, right? And then also that happy birthday postcard that I mentioned that can go out. All right. So right after the project is signed and for a few years after the project's completed, Bill's enhancing the remodeling experience. He's continuing to stay in touch, offer them service after the project's completed. And the key is that he has a system for this. It's not a lot of extra work for him. So Bill has given them an exceptional remodeling experience. That's why he's smirking. That's why he's happy. That's why Cathy and Chris are so happy in that picture. Everybody's happy. All right. So we've covered these 4 areas in the sales and marketing process. Number 1, the initial phone call and what happens before either remodeler arrive at Cathy and Chris's door. The in-person meeting, the follow-up, and what happens right after the project is signed and after the project is completed. All right. So now let me kind of transition, if I can, to tell you a little bit more about the Remodelers Autopilot program. If you guys have some questions, by the way, continue to toss those in. I'll take a look at that here in a second. All right. So these are just a few of my clients who already have Remodelers Autopilot installed in their business. Some of them have been using it for 3 years, some of them just over the last 3 months, and they're all over the country. And frankly, the plan, when I started my business about 6 years ago, I started talking to my clients and working with them on implementing some of the things that we talked about on this webinar. Sending out an email between the initial phone call and the in-person meeting. Sending them also something in the mail. Tracking your leads, making sure we're staying on top of that. Tools and resources to help them follow up easily, right? A plan and a process and a strategy for staying in touch with previous clients. And it was pretty quickly after I started my business that I said, man, I got to find a system for this to automate some of this. Now, there's some good programs out there. Market Sharp, right? A lot of people have heard of that. That's a great program. And frankly, several of my clients use that as well. But it also, it also has a lot of bells and whistles to it. Right? It has some production stuff. It has some links to QuickBooks. It does a lot of things. And for some remodelers, it's a good fit. Okay, there's Improve It 360 that some of my clients have used. Some people use ACT. There's a lot of different options out there. When I designed this Remodelers Autopilot program, I designed it to keep it as simple as possible. It doesn't do a ton of things, but the stuff it does really, really well. And I think the biggest testament to it is that some of the clients that you see on here, I'm looking at Lloyd's Cabinet Shop and Key Builders and Oddfellows Contracting. Some of the people that are managing the program for them don't necessarily have the most computer skills in the world, but they use it consistently because it's easy and it's easy to keep up to date. All right. So the biggest thing that these people and what I would say they get out of this program is it keeps them organized. Number Number two, it enhances their sales process with all the emails and postcards and resources it can easily send out before and during and after the sale. Allows them to track where their leads are coming from, their closing percentage. Helps them generate new leads. The program has a nice way to send out postcards to the surrounding homes in the neighborhood you're working. Helps them stay in touch with their previous clients. You can send emails out to your whole list, kind of like a constant contact aspect, to help them stay in touch. And lastly, it helps them be systematic and execute the little things that lead to more paying projects. So I actually wanted to, we'll see if this here works. I'm going to exit out of PowerPoint. Oh, it's working just smoothly, which I like. I just wanted to show you just for a couple minutes what the actual program itself looks like. So this is an example from one of my clients of what the program looks like. It's actually a it's called SendPepper is the software that it's built off of. They're out in Santa Barbara, California. And the software itself costs $29.95 a month. So you actually pay them directly for that. Several years ago, I invested some money with SendPepper so that I could customize this for remodelers. So that's the name of the software. And as you saw, kind of on the other slides, they have the appointment completed, working on proposal, the different categories. So in this case, we're in the done proposal for haven't signed. There's 10 people in here: Kirk and Whitney, Steve and Carrie. If I click on one of them, I can see where they're located. I can see how they found us, the type of the project, when I did the contact date, the appointment date, the proposal date. And down here in the sequences, when I click on sequences, add, remove, and in this case, if I added them to the new prospect sequence, I'm not going to do that just because this is a live account. But when I click on that and click accept, two things instantly happen. An email instantly goes out, right? This is similar. This is for one of my other clients, Midtown Craftsman. But an email instantly goes out, just like you saw on the slide earlier. And the other thing that instantly goes out is a postcard. So this was that once upon a time so-and-so decided to remodel. It's an 8.5 by 5.5 full-color postcard, kind of customized with your information. And starts to tell, hey, you're going to have a story, good or bad. We're going to help you write a fantastic story. Look forward to continuing to work with you. Is kind of the theme of it. All right. I'll click cancel on that. But being able to track everybody, right? Here's the jobs in progress that are going on right now. Here's people that we've done an appointment for and are working on their proposal. Being able to run reports of how they found us and all of that. It's just very valuable. It makes you feel very organized, and that's the feedback I always get from folks. I'll show you one other little document here, and this is kind of the moving parts and pieces. So there's a new prospect sequence of things. Some people do new home construction, so there'd be a new prospect, new home sequence. Just kind of scroll down here. Lost job, so if somebody chooses not to go with you, there's a survey that can automatically get sent out to them. If somebody says not now, you want to keep them in your database and occasionally go back and say, hey, maybe it's time for them and they're ready now. You can quickly and easily see who's in your not now area. When they become a new client, two things automatically go out. When the job is done, right, the completed job sequence that I went through a little bit in detail. So when added to this, they receive on this day, this day, this day, this day. Unstuck postcards, that's some of the follow-up postcards I showed. And down here, the pardon or dust postcards, so some of the neighborhood marketing has the capability of doing that as well. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. The key, again, is that I try to keep it as simple as possible, and it's easy to use. So let me go back and finish off these slides, and then we'll see if we have a couple questions. All right, so now, see, this is when I just messed up my screen share here. Hang on one second. We'll see if we can get this back organized. I knew the technology was working just too good. All right, so I think we're getting close here. All right, so let me switch to the, bear with me. We'll get it figured out here in a second. I could sing a song, but I'll keep that away from you. All right, I'm going to click on PowerPoint. So even without the PowerPoints up, or if I can click Exit Slideshow, Oh, she's just doing all kinds of things here. Here, let me give you the basics. What I'm looking for is for 6 remodelers who want to get Remodelers Autopilot up and running in their business over the next 60 days. So the investment of it is $30 a month. That's what goes straight to the software company out in California who handles all the technology side of it. And the 60-day coaching program is usually $24.95, $2,495, but through this webinar I'm looking to kind of discount that to $1,995. So that includes, we'll do 7 or maybe a little bit more depending if you need it, one-on-one coaching calls with me where I'll kind of personally guide you through the setup, customizing of each postcard and email to your liking, offer you some coaching consulting on enhance your initial phone call and in-person meeting, and at the end of the 60 days you'll have a simple and effective system in place to help you take more of the leads that you have and turn them into paying projects, and a system that's going to help you keep top of mind with all of your previous clients. So let me click on this PowerPoint one more time and see if I can click exit on it and get this back in working order. And she's just not wanting to cooperate. So let me do one more poll question, and then I can still see your questions, so I'll do that. So if I can do this poll question, the poll question is, are you interested in Remodelers Autopilot? Feel free to choose one of the two. Either yes, Kyle, please call/email me so that we can discuss further, or no, but thank you for the webinar. All right, so we don't have a lot of questions as of right now. If you guys have a few, feel free to ship them in. But if not, we'll give it a little bit of time. Thank you, everyone, for dialing in. Hopefully the main part of our webinar where we're talking about the difference between the two remodelers, this is I've done 2 webinars, and I've also done it in person twice at a couple of speaking gigs over the last month or two, and I think it resonates pretty strongly with folks, and even I think it makes a whole lot of